Hi friends, today we are doing Unit 10, Lesson 6, The Founding of Maryland and Georgia. We're going to start by going over the key vocabulary words you'll be hearing in today's reading. Our first word is confirmed, proved, assured, said that something is definite or definitely going to happen. Our next word is inevitable, unavoidable, unstoppable. Our next word is interference, interruption, unexpected stop in a plan or action. Our next word is debtors, people who owe money or favors to others. We are now going to move into today's reading. Chapter 8, The Founding of Maryland and Georgia. With so much trade going on and the abundance of ships laden with valuable cargo, it's inevitable or unavoidable that pirates would make an appearance in this story. The English colonies, particularly those in the southern region in the West Indies, became well known as places where pirates hid from the law. These pirates were known as buccaneers. Buccaneers were a group of men from England, France, and Holland. They terrorized sailors and captured trade ships in this region. Because of the success of these infamous pirates, some countries were forced to send naval ships to the New World to accompany their trade ships safely back to port. This New World was turning out to be a place where all kinds of people had the opportunity to become rich. This is an image of pirates taking over a trading ship. Back on land, the English colonies were expanding. Today you will learn about two more colonies, Maryland and Georgia. Both of these colonies have an interesting history. However, the development of Maryland and Georgia was a little different from that of Virginia. Let's begin with Maryland. You learned about the large plantations that were prevalent in the South. Maryland was considered a southern colony, though it was geographically in the mid-Atlantic region. Although there were many small farms in Maryland, there were a fair number of large plantations in the southern portion. Like Virginia, Maryland's economy was based on tobacco, agriculture, as a cash crop. This is an image of Charles I and Queen Maria, and also Lord Baltimore. Before he was killed, Charles I had given a large section of land north of Virginia to a friend. This time the lucky recipient of land was Sir George Calvert. Sir Calvert was also known as Lord Baltimore. Received this generous gift in 1632. Sir Calvert was a Roman Catholic. In England at that time, Roman Catholics were not very well liked because they were not part of the official Church of England. The Church of England, the Anglican Church, was split apart from the Roman Catholic Church. Many people in England at that time believed that Roman Catholics would be more loyal to the Catholic Pope than to the King, and they did not like that. However, because King Charles' wife, Queen Henrietta Maria, was Catholic, Charles tried to be respectful of the Catholics for her sake. Delighted by Charles's gift, Sir Calvert named his colony Maryland in honor of the Queen of Maria. Maryland was different from Virginia because it was controlled by Sir Calvert's family. Sir Calvert's son, Cecil, determined that Maryland would be a safe haven for Catholics. In the beginning, it was. In fact, in 1634, Cecil's brother, Leonard Calvert, led the first group of Catholics to this colony. Leonard Calvert later became the first governor of Maryland. The colonists of Maryland made it a priority to make peace with local Native Americans right away. They did not waste time searching for gold, but instead immediately established farms and trading posts. They soon settled into organized communities with laws that were clearly defined. It wasn't long before word got out that Maryland was quite a nice place to live. Europeans searching for a better life, free of poverty and religious persecution, journeyed to this colony. And it wasn't just Roman Catholics who came. Other Christians who belonged to different churches came to settle in Maryland too. Before long, Maryland became known as a place that practiced religious freedom so much so that in 1649, Lord Baltimore had the Maryland General Assembly pass the Act of Toleration. This law stated that all Christians in Maryland would be tolerated or allowed the freedom to worship. This law confirmed that Christians from different churches, Protestants, Catholics, and others, could practice their religion without interference. This is an image of the Maryland General Assembly passing the Act of Toleration. The last southern colony to be founded was Georgia. One day, a member of Parliament in London, England, named James Oglethorpe, had a brainstorm. Oglethorpe had noticed that English jails were overflowing with debtors. In England, during this time, people were put in jail, called a debtor's prison, if they were unable to pay their debts. Sometimes these jail debtors owed a little amount of money, and sometimes they owed a lot. Oglethorpe had noticed that these debtors, even those who owed a relatively small amount of money, were often left to die in jail without any way of paying back the money they owed. This is families in debtors' prisons, and also James Oglethorpe. Oglethorpe's unique idea was to set up a new colony in North America, where these debtors would be given a second chance. They would be given land so they could begin a new life. They would work to pay back the money they owed, and then their debt would be forgiven. In 1732, the then King George II liked this idea. He gave Oglethorpe a charter saying that he could take a band of debtors from England to the area of the land between South Carolina and Spanish Florida. The British Parliament supported this venture by giving Oglethorpe money and ships to make the journey. Upon reaching this new land, Oglethorpe named it Georgia after his royal majesty. This is an image of Oglethorpe receiving charter from King George II. Oglethorpe named it Georgia after his royal majesty. Kings just expected new lands to be named after them. Georgia was even larger back then than the state of Georgia is today. It included much of present-day Alabama and Mississippi, so that was quite a nice piece of land King George gave to James Oglethorpe. However, even though sending debtors to the New World seemed like a brilliant plan to Oglethorpe and the king, it was difficult to persuade many debtors to leave their families and homeland and sail 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean to a place where they might not be welcomed with open arms. Once they arrived, the debtors would have to build their own homes, as well as gather, hunt, and grow their own food. Many debtors preferred to serve their time in jail in England rather than face the unknown in the New World. Some might say beggars can't be choosers. In all, about 100 debtors agreed to go on the journey to North America. They began the laborious task of helping to turn Georgia into a colony. As soon as he arrived in Georgia, Oglethorpe met with the leader of the Yamacraw, a group of Native Americans in the region. Chief Tamochichi and the Yamacraw were willing to trade with the English and to allow them to settle there. Oglethorpe worked hard to establish alliances with the Yamacraw and even invited some of them to visit England. Oglethorpe and his band of debtors developed the first settlement in Georgia, Savannah. This is an image of Oglethorpe meeting with Chief Tamochichi. Of course, King George had another motive for sending settlers to Georgia besides helping debtors start a new life. As you can see on the map, Georgia is located between the Carolinas and what was then known as Spanish Florida. At this point, the British had not established any official colonies to the south of South Carolina, so this was the perfect way to protect the colonies from the Spanish. Georgia served as a buffer zone to separate English colonies from the Spanish colonies. This would also allow colonists to keep an eye on Spanish ambitions for growth in North America. It wasn't long before there was armed confrontation between the Spanish and the British. As time went by, more and more settlers arrived in Georgia. Some of them did not get along with the native people, as well as Oglethorpe and his followers had. The Spanish continued to stake their claim to the land, and the buccaneers often attacked vital trade ships. This new colony, the last one to be created, suffered its fair share of problems in its early days. Whereas few debtors would agree to come and settle in Georgia, many poor Europeans from other countries began to arrive and establish farms in this colony. They came primarily from Ireland and Germany. Georgian farmers liked the idea of plantation farming. However, the colonists soon found farming to be a back-breaking job and insisted that they needed help. Although it was first decided that Georgia would be a slave-free colony, the introduction of slavery slowly began. Before long, Georgia became a colony identified with plantation life and the heavy use of enslaved laborers. Within 100 years of being established, the state of Georgia had more plantations than any other state in the South, and the second largest number of enslaved Africans, second only to Virginia. You may now move on to Unit 10, Lesson 6, Google Form.